Fox News alert Facebook announcing just a short time ago that it has discovered a coordinated political campaign aimed at interfering in the midterm elections by using dozens of fake accounts and profiles on its platform. All this as the Department of Homeland Security forms a new cyber hub to protect against threats, including those targeting the nation's critical infrastructure. And joining me now is DHS Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen. It's a pleasure to have you in studio, also in New York. Tell me what this news about Facebook just broke about an hour ago. But from what I could tell, this is exactly what was happening in 2016 when Facebook said, they didn't know that they decided to take the money and run with it, but this year it's going to be different?
Yeah, I think part of this is a very good news story because it's showing that Facebook is taking this very seriously. So they should be commended for what they did today. It also shows, though, that the threat is very real, and Americans need to know that. The Russians, or whoever it is in this case, we haven't attributed it, but Russians and other nation states absolutely are attempting to manipulate us.
Apparently, so there were some members of Congress speaking off the record to our Mike Emanuel saying that it was the Russians. I guess, do we have any reason to believe that it wasn't them?
I don't, but I haven't seen the intel assessment yet. So today we've been celebrating our cyber summit, as you know, and talking about different ways we can work with the private sector, including on countering foreign influence. But I'll be very interested to see how the intel assessment assesses this particular newest, latest development.
Tell me about what your particular responsibility is at DHS in terms of preserving our election integrity and the cybersecurity threats against it.
So we protect critical infrastructure. So the role that we play here is in support of state and local governments who have the responsibility to protect our election infrastructure. And actually, we've made great strides in the last year. So I think 2016 was a real wake-up call for all of us. I'm happy to report that all 50 states are working with us now. So we do everything from share information to vulnerability assessments to help them think through redundancy and ways to demonstrate to the voters that their vote counted and was counted correctly.
But I read this weekend that I understand that Congress had allocated $308 million. DHS gets to decide on the states where they're getting that money. Do you think the states are spending that money wisely to protect their machines and their systems? Is there enough money? Do we need any more? Are they doing the right things in order to protect against these hackings? Because as we saw last year at DEF CON, hackers can figure out a way to get in there, and the states have all this responsibility. It's not just your responsibility.
No, and actually they have the foremost responsibility. So what we try to do is support and figure out how we can tailor our services. The grants are a step in the right direction. As you said, about $380 million that will be used from the Election Assistance Commission. The way in which the states are determining how to use that is in conjunction with a governance model. I think they need to think short-term and long-term. Long-term towards supply chain, short-term towards how can they make sure they have their basic patch management, have information sharing, do the basics that they need to do.
The Quinnipiac poll this week showed that 62% of people in America think that the Trump administration should be doing more to protect the nation from election meddling. How can you convince them that you're doing enough?
So I think this is where, and maybe this was part of your question earlier, there's at least two different things happening here. One is attacks against election infrastructure. That's where we're working hand in glove with state and locals. It's the physical infrastructure of the system. The other is on countering foreign influence, and we absolutely have to do more there. Americans need to be aware that it's a very real threat. It's happening real time. FBI has lead on that. They have a task force. We support them, and we work with the private sector such as Facebook, companies like Facebook, to try to pull down content that is inauthentic.
And this weekend in the Wall Street Journal, they reported that the Russians are trying to figure out a way to hack into our electrical grid, which obviously that'd be an act of war. What are we doing? And with part of your summit this morning, I saw a lot of the power companies are there.
Yes.
I mean, there's got to be a lot of coordination, hopefully, going on there.
Absolutely. So they're great. That particular sector, actually all sectors have been great partners for quite some time. But what we're trying to move towards is a model of collective defense. So the adversaries are truly crowdsourcing their attacks. They're using computers, they're using bots, they're using hired guns, they're using their government, their army, their military. We in the United States have to do the same thing. We have to bring everything we have to bear on the government side and the private sector side. So with the electric sector and the Department of Energy, we're working very closely to understand how the electricity is generated, how it is distributed, where the vulnerabilities are throughout the system. But yes, the Russians continue to probe and try to get access to the systems.